First, I'll be talking to that's all. We'll be live actually, so don't say anything until I'm recording. Hello. Welcome to this our very first live interview with a very special guest. So, as I mentioned previously in the previous video earlier this evening, this is a very special guest. As I mentioned, he is an auctioneer. But what you probably don't know is I've actually worked with this auctioneer. His name is Harry Lee. He used to be my boss. He's a director and auctioneer at ICEL Group in Springvale. And he's won many awards for his auctioneering abilities. I think one of the biggest awards was the Australasian Auctioneering Championship, and that was back in 2015. And since then, he's won other awards from the Real Estate Institute of Victoria. And yeah, please join me in welcoming Harry Lee to this show. Hi, Harry. How are you?
Hey, Pooven, good. Good to be here. Thanks for that.
Excellent. So we're here to talk about this very first purchase of yours. This was back in when you were 18 years old. When we're having a very casual chat, I found this very intriguing. I found this very interesting, and I wanted to dive into it a little bit more.
Sure.
So I guess before we get into that, maybe can you just share with the audience, for those who don't know you, a little bit about yourself at the moment, what you do, and then we'll take everyone back in time to when you were 18.
Okay, sure. 33 years old, Australian-born, Chinese-Russian guy. I'm pretty lucky to have some great parents and great mentors, including an older brother through my life. I'm currently a director and owner of a real estate business called ICEL Group, which you mentioned, in Springvale. I not only practice as the leading sales agent in that area, but auctioneering certainly quite over the years, and that's something, of course, that's only enhanced my skill set in that regard. Personally, just I guess outside of real estate, just a pretty casual, easygoing guy. Enjoy my sports, basketball, soccer. Obviously, love spending time with my partner and developing, I guess, our special relationship. And certainly, in downtime, just like every other normal person, we just want to, fulfill our life streams in all facets, whether it be career or just personal side.
Excellent. So Harry, I think I just found out one more thing about you. You're Chinese-Russian.
Yes.
I never knew that. You always said Chinese, and because you said your parents are from China, your whole family came from China.
Yeah.
So maybe tell us a little bit more about your family. Like, when did everyone come to Australia? And
Sure. Well, my parents arrived in Australia in 1984. My mother is of Russian descent, meaning that her mother was Russian, so she was mixed, and that's how they came a bit earlier. Being of obviously that background and having relatives be here, they were able to migrate here a bit earlier than the normal Chinese, you could say, demographic and population. I was born 2 years after they arrived in Australia. I have an older brother, so of course with China having a one-child policy, they couldn't really have a second child. You couldn't really anyway. You'll be going against the communism laws there. So I was born here in Melbourne, born and raised, grew up in Dandenong, which is somewhere where I've been close to basically all my life. Still am, considering Springvale's just a couple of suburbs down. So they've been very supportive in everything that I've wanted to do, which is fantastic. And yeah, I think I'm blessed.
All right, excellent. So you mentioned that you're born in Dandenong?
Yes, Dandenong Hospital.
Dandenong Hospital, okay. And when was this?
1986.
1986. So you're 3 years younger than me.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so 1986, yeah? Okay, cool. And so you purchased your first property. You told me that you purchased your first property when you were 18.
Yes.
Right? But from my understanding, it was actually even before that. Yeah?
Correct.
Can you share with us how it actually happened?
Okay, so when I was 16, this property technically was secured. Of course, at that time, it could have been secured under my name because based on the contract law in real estate, you cannot actually secure property unless you're 18 years or older. Growing up, I feel like I was just a bit different. I wanted to learn different things from the common people of my age at that time. I was very money focused. Maybe that's the best way to put it. I was kind of taught that way. A lot of the teachings that I had wasn't just from school. School obviously taught a lot of different, I guess, other practical things that we may utilize these days. But from the most part, a lot of the things that I learned outside from school actually made who I am today and what I did, especially at that time. So yeah, look, so property was secured back in 2013, towards the end of 2013. So that's the technical sales date, but come settlement, where we actually were able to negotiate 18-month settlement. So that didn't take place until the middle of 2005. And that's when, of course, I was 18 and a bit past 18, had a job at that time to secure a loan and then obviously subsequently buy the property.
All right, cool. So can you tell me a little bit about this property? Where was it? I'll bring up. I'll.
Yeah, well, looking at in terms of the property itself, it was in Dandenong. Looking at ultimately, it's you got to start off somewhere, and why not start off in your own backyard? So we looked into Dandenong properties at the time. Well, I guess one thing that I learned was land is what appreciates in value. So ultimately was looking at a site that did have some land in a good location. So this property, the address is 21 Master Street, Dandenong. Master Street, Dandenong is a very central location of Dandenong. It was in a growth zone area. I guess at that time it was called Residential Zone 2. So it had potential to develop. Not that I definitely thought about developing, but the fact that it had the potential was great. Had about 700 square meters of land, old weatherboard house, great type of investment opportunity. And look, it just ticked a lot of boxes at that time, and it wasn't too expensive. That was the main thing. It was because of how rundown it was good entry level buying for me.
All right, excellent. So this was back when you were 16.
Yes.
Right. Just help me understand how did that happen? I mean, at 16 you were not employed.
No.
You're probably still living at home.
Yes, of course.
High school. So what made you agree to sign the contract? How did this happen? Were your parents involved? Was your
Well, the contract wasn't signed by myself. The contract was signed by my brother and a good friend together. They signed off on it. Both of them are mentors of mine, my older brother and of course my friend and my brother's friend. They've basically have paved the way for me in a lot of knowledge and understanding because they were quite entrepreneurial and business minded in their own right, and so they were prepared to obviously to do the immediate or initial contracts. In terms of how it all came about, having grown up with people of an older age, albeit they were only 5-6 years older, they were still older and much more mature than I was at the time. And because they were in the field of what they were doing in terms of small business, I was learning a lot of things that they were learning. And that includes, for example, reading books from Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant, and also to going to his seminar, his talks, going to their workplaces, their businesses. Like I just kind of had this attraction towards what they were doing. And so real estate, of course, is an investment considered quite safe and certainly had a lot of upside to it. And yeah, look, ultimately, even during school, like for those that are watching, hopefully there will be some that watch this, my high school friends, the ones that could testify, even during school times, I'll go, don't, because of the things that I learned, they basically teach, don't work too hard for money, make money work hard for you. And you can only do that through, great business and investment strategies. So in the end, the sooner you take the dive and into the deep end, the sooner you get to realize what potential is there.
Yeah. All right. So tell me, because you said initially it was purchased between your brother and a friend, right?
Yeah.
So were they thinking of buying it for themselves and then offload to you? What happened there?
Look, I think the plan was to go, because we're all so close together. My brother and I, we've always been quite close, and so we always thought that whatever investment was, that was going to be made would be benefiting everyone. But ultimately, in the end, I think the decision was that I would be purchasing that property solely only because I did have a full-time job to be able to service that, and then that would being able to give pressure on me to not only work to pay a mortgage and so forth. The other guys already had properties already, so to them it wasn't like I guess a new step. For me, it was certainly a fresh step. But yeah, to actually have the ability to service a loan at the time, albeit just, but yeah, it worked out. Yeah, it's I guess everyone has to start. Ultimately, without their support, I probably, or their push, even maybe that's the way to put it, probably wouldn't have happened. But in the end, our surroundings is what defines us, and I had great surroundings.
All right, that's interesting. So when it came to, you said your brother and your brother's friend already had properties. What's the age gap between you and your brother?
5 years.
Okay, cool. So when it came to so the end of 2018, was it? No, sorry, 2005.
2005. Mid 2005 was when it settled, roughly then.
Okay, and at that point, can you actually share with us what was the purchase price?
Yeah, it was it was 258,000, just under 260.
Okay, so let's paint the picture here. So in the mid of 2005, you were employed?
Yeah, I was employed in March 2005 with my first real estate job. So that was the first job I've ever had, working full time outside of family's business. And it was settled in mid. So I had the 3 months satisfaction of, I guess, regular income coming. I had an employment contract. And yeah, was able to, I guess, obtain the loan and purchase the property.
All right, cool. Help me understand how big a commitment was this? Because I'm finding it hard to just accept this, because as I was sharing in a prior video, at the age of 18, I was in uni. I was going after girls. I was trying to get a part-time job. So I was a how much were you earning back then, and what was this commitment actually? What did this mean to you?
Look, it was a big commitment. Okay, so besides from obviously the deposit that was put down, that's one thing. The actual serviceability of the loan. People will look at these numbers and probably think, how the hell did it happen? So my
sorry, Harry, just before that, the deposit, did you save up your own deposit?
A portion of it was, and a portion was mum and dad helped me a little bit.
All right,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah, mum and dad helped. So the working side, $25,000 was my package. That's pre-tax. That's pre. Of course, we're dealing. I know we're dealing with different economies, but certainly at that time it was the base reward for an 18-year-old with no experience working in real estate. That was kind of the level. So everything that I was earning, I would say 80% out of the whole lot would be going towards paying towards this property. For me, growing up, of course, with mum and dad, it saved a lot of expenses. So of course, a lot of the food, electricity, and so forth, I didn't really need to pay for living at home. But in terms of my normal expenses, I had to also keep at a minimum. Like, for example, whether it be going out or spending recklessly on unnecessary things in the things that I learned, they call the doodads. So anything that is not necessarily like it's just money down the drain. So yeah, it was a bit tough at the time. Interest rates from top of my head was at 6-7%. It did rise a bit higher afterwards beyond that, but I think at that time it was about 6-7%. So yeah, just had to manage, dig deep.
All right, excellent. So in terms of your job, what were you doing?
I started as a prospector and basically just an office junior for the real estate sales office. It was in Springvale.
What's a
So
prospector?
the company prospector is someone that looks for business, and you just find someone that is thinking about selling their house. And once you found them, you will pass on that person's details to a senior sales consultant in the office to go obtain that business. So all I was doing is a hard yard. So I would just be door knocking on people's doors. I would be cold calling people. I would be putting out open for inspection signs for the senior sales guys because they'll be too lazy in doing it. I'll be data entry for some people. What was needed to be fulfilled in the office, I was kind of the all-rounder a little bit, but my main focus was to generate some sort of business into the business that I was working for.
Okay. And at that point in time, apart from the property, what were your other priorities?
To work hard to make money. Look, in the end, the property itself, I guess, is a vehicle, and investments are always a vehicle. Even at that time, I understood that, at least based on the knowledge that I read. So for me, I just knew that I wasn't going to be staying on $25,000 a year. I needed to work hard to progress. So the money, but I could buy better investments, can do more things. So my focus was purely my career. So like you mentioned yourself, Hooven, even friends of my age at the time, they were all in uni. They'll be either studying, very minimal, with uni life from what I heard. I've never been to uni. So you study the bare minimum, and the rest of your time you're either socializing, you're either going to clubs, pubs, going for drinks, hanging out, doing the things that young people would do. I kind of actually missed out on a lot of that, and for a period of time, I thought I missed out on a lot of life. But look, I think from a long-term perspective, it's paid off okay.
All right, excellent. So when it came to, I'm going to ask you in a bit what did that first property actually do for you in the long run? But just before that, prior to this, you mentioned something about Robert Kiyosaki.
Sure.
Right, and how where you are today, a lot of it is attributed to that book and some other your mentors around you.
Mm-hmm.
Can you touch a little bit about the book, and I guess what did that do for you?
Look, I think growing up as call myself the second generation here, because my parents were the first generation. When they came, my parents had little to no English at all in terms of speaking ability. So when they came, they worked very hard for money. And a lot of times when things were tough at home financially and there would be struggles, it caused a lot of stress to the family itself. So growing up in my mind, and this is from an extremely young age, even before that, I wanted to make sure that, as a family moving forward and generations down the track, that we wouldn't have to kind of go through those type of circumstances, because those type of pressures, I believe, should not exist. That's my opinion. If anything has to come down to money, it should not even exist. So make sure that there's enough levels of it so that we don't have to go through the stresses that people do normally have around it. So what Robert's the fact that most people generally work and they work for you could say a living, but that's not what you should be doing. You definitely should be living, and working should be an option. Come to it. It should be an option ultimately. Now, in the end, you can't get to 0 to 100 in one go, but certainly that's what you should be aiming for. So you work hard, you can make some money, yes, correct, but the money that you make is the quantity of it does not really matter. It's actually what you put it towards. How you choose to spend that money is what will generate proper wealth in the end. So that's one of the things that I learned quite young and quite early, and it was reinforced not just by Robert Kiyosaki and my mentors in terms of my close relatives, but also to moving forward to other people that I've admired have all said very similar things. So obviously there must have been something to that, and you've just kept on following that path.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to real estate and investments, I guess a lot of people do quote Robert Kiyosaki. And yeah, I guess it works.
Yeah, look,
What he shares in the book.
I think so. And look, he was someone that's I don't mean to sound racist, but because he was of Asian ethnicity as well, it kind of probably gave me a bit of a better connection as well. Just speaking from the fact that he had that background too, and he talks about what a rich dad would think, or how they would think, and what a poor dad would think. And he kind of the story that he painted was, for me, it resonated, and that's why for me to this day, I still feel quite connected to the things that he says, because it's so relevant in my life.
All right, cool. So coming back to the question I mentioned earlier, what did that first property do for you? Because, for me personally, when I bought my first property, I thought, I will never be able to afford the next property. And little did I know, as equity grew, you get pay rises and your financial circumstances changes. Suddenly, the next one doesn't take 5 years.
Sure.
Sometimes it doesn't even take 2 years.
Yep.
So I guess maybe share with us, what did that first property actually make possible for you?
Okay.
Yeah, and how did that actually impact you?
Okay, so two things. Number one, the first property, because of my age and once again limited income, it made me think about, okay, what do I need to do to make myself more comfortable to still own this property? So I worked harder to be able to, at that time, either be promoted and then work into a place where I can actually start making sales. I mean, that's one thing. It made me actually look for opportunities to generally make more income to service that. So that I can live a little bit more. So that was number one, what it did. The second thing, of course, is that once you have your first property, I think you gain an understanding over whether it be short, medium, or long term, of what it can actually do. How you could, using leverage, and of course, in this case, properties and a mortgage, that you're able to build equity, and you're able to have some sort of capital growth, to then utilize that to then go into other investments, whether it could be business, or whether it could be the second property, whether it could be a better property, which is what I initially did at the time. It allowed for all of that to happen. So I think when you go into an investment property, it can be quite daunting, and certainly there are different pressures along with it. But if you kind of let things happen, and then see the positives in it, and then allow yourself to grow, many things and many doors of opportunity can occur as well.
All right, cool. And in terms of like specifics, right?
Okay. Yeah.
What did this first property do? Did you extract equity? Did you sell it and buy the next one? Did you subdivide it? What did you do with this to, I guess, create the next opportunity?
Yeah, look, the next opportunity came, it was property as well. And it came in a way where I did have to sell this investment to get that next one. So the next one was in Glen Waverley. It was in the school zone of Glen Waverley, which is even at that time was highly regarded, but the years subsequent was even more regarded. So in 2008, I did sell property, so I had it technically for 3 years. It did sell for a profit, certainly. There was a bit of capital growth at that time. It wasn't phenomenal, but what it did provide was enough equity to then take that step to put it on towards the next property.
Yeah, and when did this happen? Like how many years after?
So 2008, when I sold the property, 60,000. So on paper, there was $100,000 gain. We all know that, okay, when you minus a few things here and there, agents' fees, costs, and whatever it may be, that may not end up in your pocket, but ultimately, from the initial deposit plus the gains together, it allowed for a better deposit, a bigger deposit, to then, of course, buy a better property, which was, of course, substantially a little bit higher in value. And then, of course, at that time in 2008, I did have a much higher income to be able to service a bigger loan. And so that was the decision, because I saw having to work through real estate at that time as well, which is, I think a lot of people don't get to experience. I got to see areas of potential growth and what was probably important for people's lives. And that's why I chose Glen Waverley School Zone.
All right, excellent. So by this point, you were earning a lot more. I'm guessing you were already an agent. You're no longer a prospector?
Yes, I was already an agent.
All right, excellent. And I've got to ask this question. You live in Dandenong?
Yes.
Your property was in Dandenong. Did you sell your own property?
No, I allowed another agent from within the network that I was working for to
Yeah.
sell it for me.
Okay.
Look, I was young. I was definitely enthusiastic, but I just felt that being only 3 years in the industry, it was better for someone more senior, more experienced to handle that for me. And even later onwards in life, even more in recent years, when I've had property of my own, like that Glen Waverley one, and I did transact later,
Yeah.
I assigned someone else to sell it, only because I didn't want to. In the end, real estate, like with any investment, you got to keep it emotions out of it. Try not to get involved with just the business sense, because in the end, for anything that you own, you're always going to have some sort of emotional attachment. So I wanted to make sure remove all of that altogether.
All right, cool. Sorry. So we're going to wrap up, I guess, this section. But before that, when it comes to learning about buying a property, buying your first property, you can just Google and you get plenty of, content out there. There's an overload of content. But I think nothing comes close to someone sharing their personal experience and advice that comes out of your own personal experience. So for anyone watching, if because of the current situation that we're in with COVID-19, many first home buyers are looking for a bargain. They're hoping to get real estate at a 30% discount. Whether or not they get it, that's irrelevant. But for someone who is looking and they're a first home buyer, and they're probably hesitating, should I buy now? Should I buy investment property, or should I buy a place to actually live in? There are just so many questions. So if your cousin, he was 18 or 22, he just got his first job and he's looking to buy a property, what advice would you give to him?
Okay, so I think there'll be different advices if you're buying a property to live. If you're looking at, for example, moving out of mum and dad's home, you have a partner, you're getting married, maybe you're setting up a family, even if you're young, and you want to buy, there's probably different advice to then someone, say, if you're 20 years old and you're just looking at buying an investment because you want to build for your future. So for the, just from a general perspective, look, there's a lot of negative outlook about real estate. And look, I'm not going to deny that at all. Look, who knows what could happen in the next few years. But if you got to look at your motive in the end, if you're looking for, say, capital growth because it's an investment that you've made, then, and you feel that risk versus reward says that, okay, I'm going to wait a bit more because I feel there's going to be better opportunities, then you could do that. Then look, that's no problem, because that's, once again, that's business. Yeah, in the end, when it comes to decision making, you got to do it at the no one knows what the right time is, but certainly you got to be smart about it if it's for an investment. Yeah, if it's for a first home buyer or someone that wants to buy something to live in, the thing is that sometimes the best properties come up. You just don't know when they come up. Yeah, sometimes the most ideal property may come up today. And the thing is that when you buy a home, we all buy homes not to live in there, intend to live in there for only 1 year. I'm pretty sure we all buy homes with the intention to live there for quite a period of time. It could be 4 years, it could be 10 years, who knows? But you're going to be buying it for a quite sustained period, and we all know that generally speaking, the property market has its own strength over time. That's where money is made in real estate. When people wait, time, the amount of time. Also, one of the things I learned from mentors, it's not timing that matters; it's the amount of time in that matters when it comes to growth in real estate. So, once I start to understand that, I'll do it based on whatever purpose will serve for me. So, that's why it's slightly different advice. If someone wants to see a property now and it's great, it fits them perfectly, they can service a loan, interest rates are cheap, everything's good, can lock in that. Why not? Why not take action now? The opportunity is there. What if later you lose your job and you can't get that ideal home anymore? Like, that's risk versus reward. So.
All right. So I just thought of something else, because I don't hear very often someone buying a property and setting an 18 months settlement period.
Yep.
Can you just share what are some of the benefits and I guess cons of a long settlement?
Look, long settlement, look, the benefits, of course, you get time to prepare, you have time to organize, you have time to arrange finances, to plan for things. You can, of course, slowly build your portfolio that way, rather than diving straight into a 30-day settlement and go into that commitment. So look, I think you're buying time. That's what you're essentially doing. You're buying time. So from technically, say for example, the time I bought my property, the first property, and by the time it's settled, it probably did appreciate maybe 10% during that time. But without me having to actually fork out anything other than the deposit, which was just left in there in the agent's trust account anyway, right? So ultimately, so that could be a big benefit for someone. The thing is that if you want to move into a property, or if you've got a need to do a certain purpose for a property, and time is not the waiting, then just do it as early as possible. Like, if you want to move in before Christmas because you want the kids to settle in and make sure they go to the right school next year without having any distractions, you wouldn't want a longer settlement. But as an investment, generally, if you want long settlements, it's only because you're buying time, and that means you got more planning and ability to structure around what you want to do without having to rush. That's all.
Yeah, so I guess for an investment, it makes sense for a longer settlement, for you to just buy more time, make whatever plans. I guess if you're planning to do a subdivision, you've got more time to do that as well. Yeah,
we see that very common with, I guess, a lot of builders and developers out there. They like to buy properties, at good prices, but then they ask for extended settlements. It allows them to do what they want to do, and that could be applying for permits. That could be applying, for certain things to do with the development of the property, to wait for a rezoning. Some people, they have inside knowledge. They know that, okay, maybe a rezoning could happen, so let's just secure it today, get a long settlement. By the time it's rezoned, and do something else afterwards.
All right, cool. Was there anything you think I need to know that I probably didn't ask?
No, probably not really. Like, I mean, the viewers can ask any questions they want as well. Like, obviously, anyone else that has any ideas, they can feel free to leave their comments. I'll be happy to answer any of the questions if they leave comments on any of the pages. But ultimately, I just think, look, when it comes to buying property, it's a daunting, I guess, proposition, only because it is such big dollars and it is a bigger investment. But once again, just remember, when it comes to property, you have to think term. I think too many people, when it comes to buying property, just think too short term. They just think that, okay, if I buy it today, it's going to drop in 6 months time. Yeah, but what were you going to do in that 6 months time anyway? Like, were you really going to sell it again? Like, it's just not feasible in Melbourne real estate when there's stamp duties, agents, commissions, and everything to flip a property in 6 months, especially in this type of market. So everything that you do in life, including investments in real estate, is just all about long term.
All right, cool. Well, thank you so much, Harry, for sharing, your own experiences and, everything about your very first purchase and going into detail about it.
Yep.
Okay, so now what I've got a set of questions, and I'm going to fire some rapid questions.
Yep.
I am going to chuck a timer there.
Yep.
All right. It started already, but let me take it off. I'll play some music and let's see how many questions we can actually get through.
Okay.
Okay. So, are you ready?
I am always ready. Born ready. Let's go.
All right. Music has started. Let's start the timer. All right. So, Harry, what's your favorite color?
Oh.
Oh, good. What's your favorite ice cream flavor?
Chocolate.
Auction or private sale?
Auction.
Basketball or soccer?
Basketball.
You had some time to think there. What's your favorite basketball team?
Dallas Mavericks.
Okay, cool. And what's your favorite cuisine?
Chinese.
Okay. Who do you admire the most? Okay.
Yes.
Where can you get the best bread?
Pho Hong Kong.
I don't know where that is. Share the address. Okay, describe yourself in 3 words.
Young, happy.
Okay, time is over. Okay. All right, I've got one bonus question for you. Thank you for answering all those questions.
Yes.
The last bonus question I have for you is, to finish the sentence, real estate is?
A very exciting place to be.
All right. right, excellent. Well, with that, I'd like to end this very first interview. For anyone who likes to reach out to Harry, where can everyone find you, Harry?
All my socials at Harry Lee, HARRYLI 6688. So that's Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Albeit there's limited videos there at the moment. So anywhere on those platforms, you'll be able to reach me.
Harry Lee at 6688.
At Harry Lee 6688.
At Harry Lee 6688. I think 6688 is your rego number as well, right?
That is correct.
Yeah. So if you see 6688, it's very likely Harry Lee. Well, join me in thanking Harry Lee. Thank you so much, Harry, for your time. And all the best with your property sales, because real estate is back in business now.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. And to anyone else out there, if you want some help or advice, especially if you're just starting off, I'm always happy to do so. And yeah, Purvin, thanks for having me again, and look forward to maybe doing one of these in the future down the track.
All right, excellent. Thanks again, Harry. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it, our very first interview, live interview with Auction Reporters. Thank you for joining us. I hope you have enjoyed this. If you have any comments, any feedback, or if you'd like us to interview someone else on a different topic of real estate, feel free to comment or send us a private message. Have a good night, and I will see you around.
Funk